Hey everybody, now that we have mixed some realistic skin tones, I'm going to show you how to use them to paint a face. If you don't know how to mix realistic skin tones, start with my video where I show you how, then do this one. You might like to have your custom mixed skin tone swatches on hand while you're doing this activity. You will use your large piece of canvas paper to practice painting 3 different faces. I am right-handed, so I always keep my palette on the right side of my paper. That way I don't have to reach across my painting to get my paints, and it makes it less likely that I'm going to accidentally drop some paint on my painting paper. Alright, I have already mixed this medium skin tone, and now I am going to use it to paint a face. Think back to the proportions of the head. I am going to put a head facing us right here in the center of the page. So think a circle. Notice how I'm not using black, but I am using the skin tone that I just custom mixed. The line of symmetry for the face, the chin and jaw, the eye line halfway, the line of the nose below that, and if you want, you can go ahead and sketch in where the neck or shoulder will go. I have the guidelines that I need, and I am going to go ahead and paint in this whole face with my custom skin tone. Yes, I am covering up the guidelines, but by painting them in, I've already helped to establish them. Go ahead and paint in the neck. Now that I have the background painted in, the next step is to create a slightly darker hue that I am going to use as the shadows on this face. I already have a darker brown mixed that I am going to stir some of that in with the skin tone that I was just using to get something that is just slightly darker but in the same undertone range as the base color of the face. There we go, this will work for a shadow. Now I want to imagine that the light source in my image is on the upper left, which means that the shadows will be cast on the right side. The opposite side as the light source. So as I'm starting to shade in the face here, I definitely will have shadows in the eye sockets, on the right side of the nose, under the nose, a shadow usually on the upper lip, definitely a shadow under the chin. Just sketching it in lightly. Notice how I'm not outlining, but rather painting in solid areas of color. Okay, so I just have some basic shadows laid in. Next, I want a highlight, a slightly lighter version of the base color I'm working with. So I'm going to bring in just a little bit of white and stir it in with the hue I'm already using. Okay, and I'm going to use that as a highlight. So again, if my light source is on the upper left, the areas closest to the light source are the areas that will take that highlight. Alright, now for the darkest shadow, I'm finally going to open my black paint. I haven't actually used it yet in any of the skin tones I have, but I want to make a really deep dark shadow. Blotting most of the black off my brush so there's very little. Now stirring that in with some of the darker brown I had. Black can make skin tones tend to look too green, but you know how to neutralize that greenness. Add some of green's complementary opposite, red. It's a deep dark value for a darker shadow. Now, while I let the base layer on this face dry, I'm going to do another face here in profile, looking towards the first one. And I'll do this one with a different skin tone. Now again, I'm going to sketch in the guidelines. Skull, and we're looking to the left, so the line of symmetry would be on the left side, the line of the jaw. The occipital joint is where the neck connects. Eye line. So the nose will be here. Okay. Now that I have the guidelines sketched in paint, I'll go ahead and fill in the face with the color that I mixed. All right, now again, I want to mix a slightly darker version of this flesh tone to create shadows. Okay, now I'm again going to have the light source coming from the upper left. Using what you know about drawing the face, but remember, we're not drawing with paint, we're painting. So your lines don't have to be as controlled and precise as you might normally make them if you were working with a pencil. Okay, now I've placed the basic shadows in this profile face. Now I want to mix a lightest hue that I will use as a highlight. And where the sun from the upper left would hit is the places that would have the brightest. Now I'm going to show you one more face over here, this time in a 3/4 view, and I'll have it looking to the right. Now this time, because it's a 3/4 view looking to the right, the line of symmetry will be curved and slightly to the right side. Once you've sketched in the basic proportion, you can fill in. Now again, I'm going to mix a darker version of this flesh tone to be the shadow. This time the light source is still coming from the upper left, so the shadows are going to tend to be on the right. A lighter version of the same skin tone again for the highlights. All right, now that the flesh tones that we've painted in have dried, I'm going to show you how to paint eyes. You do want to make sure that the flesh tone is completely dry before you do this. Otherwise, what you're painting in for the eyes could mix with the color you have underneath. So I already have shadows painted in that mark where the eye sockets go. Now with pure white on my brush, not mixed with any hue, I am going to paint in the white of the eyes. You're showing the part of the eyeball that is not being covered by the skin of the eyelid. Okay, I'm going to do the same in these other two faces. Only one eye is showing in profile. In the 3/4 view, the eye on the edge goes right to the edge of the head. After you've painted in the whites of the eyes, I recommend again that you wait or use a hairdryer. You want that layer of white paint to be dry before you try adding the iris color on top. All right, now I get to mix some fun iris colors. Light greenish brown hazel. You want the irises to be looking in the same direction. Now for this face, I think I'll do blue eyes. Now for this face, I think I will mix more of the chocolate brown. Let that layer dry fully before you try painting on the pupil. For painting on the pupil, I like to use pure black. While I'm waiting for the pupils to dry, I think I'll go ahead and start adding some eyebrows to these people. Melanin, which gives us the pigment of our skin, is also what gives us the pigment of our hair. So many of the skin tones that we've already practiced mixing could also work as hair tones. Now, of course, we can also dye our hair, so you could go with something a little different. This honey blonde color is going to work for this person's hair, and you can put on any kind of hair that you want. Paint each brush stroke in the direction the hair grows, from root to tip. Now, the eyebrows are usually quite close to the natural hair color, so I'm going to paint in this person's brows with the same hue that I used for the base tone of their hair. Dark brown, almost black for this person. When I paint hair, I love to paint in the direction the hair grows. When I was painting in this hair, I'd start at the root and flow with the strands. When I'm painting in this textured hair, I'm curling my brush in little spirals, the same way the hair itself coils into tight spirals. Even in this darkest hair tone that I'm painting, this isn't pure black paint. This is a dark brown mixed with black and with blue. Now I want to think about the lips on these faces. Areas of the skin that have more blood vessels appear warmer in hue, such as the lips, the cheeks, the chin, and the tip of the nose. Now I want to make a slightly paler version of the same hue, bringing in just a little bit of white, and I'll use that on my medium skin tone face. Cheeks, nose, and lip. Now we'll mix an even paler version for my pale skin tone over here. Now we often see a highlight on the lower lip because it sticks out a little bit, so that means the sun would hit it. So I want to mix an even lighter hue to be the highlight on the lip. All right, now that the eyes have had a chance to dry a bit, I'm going to add highlights to the eyes, which is a great trick for just making your painting come alive. Something about adding highlights to the eyes just makes it more lifelike. I want to try to make the eyes match as much as I can. All right, those are my three faces. Now, if you want, you could add an outfit so they're not just floating heads. That can be a lot of fun. Now you know my favorite techniques for painting the human face. Try at least 3 practice faces before you move on to your finished portrait. Happy painting!